Okay, the 49ers back in the win column after a couple losses. Does that mean the 49ers are all the way back? We'll talk about it and more on the Sprint Ride Option podcast starting now.
Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners. Sprint Ride Option podcast. We are live. It is a new episode of the Sprint Ride Option podcast. I am Andrew Pasquini, joined as always by Jason Aponte. For the first time in, what would it be, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? We're doing a podcast after a 49ers win. We like to hear it. We like to see it. Jason Aponte, how you doing on this Monday? How you feeling on a victory Monday, as they like to call it on Twitter?
Excellent. What a time to be alive. The Niners are all the way back. Everybody can kiss my ass. We're back. No, I'm just kidding.
They took so the Niners take advantage of a Patriots team, 30-13 yesterday. It started a little rocky, couple field goals in the red zone to start the scoring for the 49ers. That is until MVP Fred Warner came in with a pick six to give the 49ers a 13-0 lead. Niners would extend the lead to 20-0 before a field goal at halftime would make it 20-3. Niners special teams made a quick little cameo to get the Patriots back in the game, make it 20-10. But Brock Purdy and his big arm decided to say no thank you to the Patriots. Attempted comeback, get it out to 27-10. New England would tack on to a field goal to make it 27-13. Niners would tack on one final field goal to make it 30-13. That's how we got there. The 49ers now 2-2. New England moves to 1-3. Jason, I feel like I've been rude the past couple of weeks. We've been doing this new post game where we bring things instead of just talking about every position. And then I have selfishly been the one to be like, I'll start this week, Jason. I'm going to let you start this week. Niners win. What was your biggest takeaway as we start our three things we took away from the 49ers win yesterday?
Again, with this win, I didn't really learn anything about the 49ers that I didn't already know. Like, I know that they're better than the Patriots. I know that when they play their best football, they can beat just about anybody. But I guess what this game was for trying things out and trying to figure out some stuff and trying to get back on track all the way together. And sure, you can look at the competition and say, well, it's the Patriots, whatever. Like, you don't really gain respect by beating them. But I think what Nick Sorensen was doing, and this is my overarching takeaway, was bringing more pressure, and he's been adding and ramping it up. And this was the perfect week to try things out. This was the perfect team to try things out against, especially now with Arizona next week. And you know how hard it is that they play the 49ers. I don't care what happened with Washington. I'm not looking forward to that game. That they're always annoying when it comes to that. And a running quarterback, you've got to start to figure this stuff out now. And who better to do this against than the Patriots? So Nick Sorensen, the defense, getting pressure, finding different ways to create pressure. It's something that's really good to see because this was exactly the game to experiment.
Yeah, Kyle Posey, good friend, NinersNation.com, he posted something on Twitter earlier today. 49ers blitz rate by a week under new defensive coordinator Nick Sorensen per Next Gen Stats. Week 1, 9.7%. Week 2, 12.5. Week 3, 20.7. Week 4, 33.3. The 49ers pass rush was responsible for 31 pressures yesterday. What you want to see, led by Nick Bosa, led by Leonard Floyd. And I know a lot of people are going to want to take away, like, hey, it's a Patriots offense. No shit, the 49ers did that. But my point that I want to take away was the 49ers defense has really struggled. It's really good to see them return to the form that we've expected, even against a lower rate team, because that tells me it's somewhere in there. It exists because, Jason, we could easily be talking about on a Monday afternoon right now, boy, oh boy, look how bad the Niners defense looked yesterday. They lost to the Patriots, but we're not. We're here talking about just how good the pass rush looked, just how it felt better yesterday. And I think that's the big thing I've been missing is, yeah, the Niners defense hasn't been giving up a ton of points, 24 points to the Vikings. I think it was 24 to the Rams last week. And 24 is not a ton. It's a good amount, but it's not a ton. But it just hasn't felt right. Yesterday was the first game of the season where I really felt like the Niners defense was what the Niners defense was supposed to be.
Yeah, and the Patriots offensive line is extremely banged up. They even lost more players during this game. So yeah, again, you look at it and it's weird because the 49ers are in this spot where it's like, if they win this game, then it doesn't mean anything because it's the Patriots. But if they lose, it means much more, right? Like, it just means more about the fact that they lost to the Patriots as opposed to, taking care of business. This is what good teams do, is they take care of the games that they're supposed to. We obviously had what happened last week with the Rams. You couldn't have this happen. And just I had little reservations about this game because remember we were talking and you said, am I overanalyzing? Yeah, we're overthinking this one a
Mhm.
little bit. We're overthinking this one a little bit because I don't see the path to victory. I don't for them, right? Like this, I
Yeah.
can draw it and outline it for almost every opponent that the 49ers are going to face. I never saw the path to victory. And I think it was important to kind of see this defensive line come alive, especially now with Javon Hargrave out and how they're starting to get this thing going. It's got to carry over. This has to be a confidence builder. This is a build on type of win. It doesn't mean that I learned anything necessarily about the
Yeah.
Niners. Again, I knew that they were better than the Patriots, but you got to stack these games and go ahead and keep on, finding things out about yourself. We have 4 weeks of football. It's a large sample. It's
Mhm.
not a large sample size, but we're starting to figure out who teams are and
Yeah.
what you are. And that's the identity that they need to find. And then when you start to think about a win like this, and then you possibly getting reinforcements back, and now you can start like really looking forward to how this season's going to turn out and the way that the 49ers usually turn it on at the end of the year. This is exactly the type of win that they needed. And good teams will take care of the teams that they're supposed to. And the 49ers just did.
I think you said it best at the start there. This is a game that, like, yeah, no shit, the 49ers won it. And you feel like you can't take away anything from that because of who they played. But boy, oh boy, it's a hell of a lot better than the other side of it. And us talking about, because like I think my biggest concern going into this game, I was with you. I was at the point of like, okay, it's the Patriots, the Niners should win this game. But that was the logic I used with the Vikings. Like, this is
Hmm.
the Vikings. The Niners are better. Maybe not so much the Rams because, divisional games gets kind of weird. But look on paper, especially with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua out, the Niners are better than the Rams, and they couldn't do it. But yesterday, it was a little bit more of what you expect the 49ers to look like against a team they should beat. And that's what I like to see, especially from the defense. And I'm sure we're going to talk about the offense in a little bit here. But my first thing I wanted to bring to the point of the poor offensive line of the Patriots, and really we could have expected happen, but it did happen, and that's what I want to focus on. Is, do the 49ers have some pass rush depth, defensive line depth on top of that? Because, and I know New England's offensive line, I get it. Kevin Givens, who's just kind of been around for a few years, 2.5 sacks. Malik Collins had a pretty good game yesterday. I think he had a sack and a half. I apologize. I'm not the best with pronunciations, but Okuano, I think I got it.
Uh-huh.
He had a
So
pretty
let's just call him Sammy O.
Sammy O. Boom, Sammy O. We like it. He had a good couple of plays against the Rams last week,
Hmm.
but he had a couple really good plays yesterday. I think he had no, that was Fred Warner with a stop on a 4th down, but Sam O had a really good game, and I want to question that. Hey, maybe it did happen against a poor New England Patriots offensive line, but in a week where you lose Javon Hargrave and Jordan Elliott goes down with an injury, we still don't really know what's going on there.
He came back in the
Niners
game.
needed Niners needed something out of the depth that wasn't
Hmm.
Nick Bosa, and it was very good to see Leonard Floyd and Nick Bosa get that game.
Hmm.
But the names you didn't expect having the game they did, really good for confidence in this defensive line.
And that's the thing is, what do you do, Nick Sorensen, right? Like you're obviously down, you're one of your premier pass rushers. How do you respond? Do you just
Mhm.
keep doing the same thing over and over, or do you try some different things? That's what was so important about this game because it's about establishing identity, but also you're trying to figure out what's working, what's not. It may work this week, and it did against the Patriots. It may not work against another quarterback who possibly can make better throws. No disrespect to Jacoby Brissett, but again, you have to start to figure out effective ways to continue to put pressure on the offensive line, whoever it is that you're facing. And again, this was very much a get right game in terms of obviously a win, but just figuring out who you are and figuring out what's working. And this is the time to try things like this in this game. So it's again not disrespecting the Patriots. They're not going anywhere.
Mhm.
It was the perfect opportunity for all of these things to come together. It was like a perfect storm of circumstances in terms of opponent and what you were able to do and what's successful. So yeah, again, it was for all intents and purposes exactly what the 49ers needed on defense, because it is very much just building on that in confidence. And now does the confidence go up? You feel a little bit better about your pass rush. You know, you even get a Malik Mustafa start
Mhm.
in this game. And again, he's getting valuable reps. You see Renardo Greed. Everybody's kind of just rounding into shape. And I think after 4 weeks, we still believe this team is what they are, but they're still establishing themselves right now. And there's a lot, all their good football is ahead of them right now. And I think that's the important thing to take away from this too. Is they still haven't played their best game yet. And look at them right now, like the way that they are. 2-2 right now, if you would have said in the beginning of the year, would have been kind of disastrous, right? When you look
Mhm.
at it. But when you think about weathering the storm of all these injuries and everything, and you're 2-2 with a chance to really go in and beat up on Arizona and Seattle back-to-back weeks, you're talking about a completely different team through 6 weeks than you
Mhm.
were what we've been dealing with for the first four.
Yeah, and you mentioned Malik Mustafa, and he made a play that the NFL is not high school, and I think this is more of a high school thought than for me. From me, I'm a big believer in like effort and seeing what players can offer when they're given that opportunity. Malik Mustafa on Fred Warner's pick six, taking out the Patriots offensive lineman on a block, sprint like he was at the back of the play, sprinted through to get past Warner to set up that block.
Hmm.
I know it's more of an offensive thought of the no block, no rock, but like him throwing that block, like it's like, man, I kind of want him on the field more just to kind of
He just
see
wants to
what it
hit.
looks like.
He
Yeah,
wants to hit people. He just wants to hit
yeah,
people.
I love it. And so like it just really it felt like that first full 49ers defensive performance that we've wanted to see these past few weeks, and we finally got it. And again, against an offense that they should have had it against, but it being the first time we've seen it this year just makes it feel good, and
Yeah,
it exists somewhere. And that's what I want to take away from this game is that the Niners defense, the state that we know it can be, exists somewhere in there.
yeah. Yeah, and there's a formula to it, and I don't think it's apples to apples every week. This is what you need to do. Again, opponent personnel dictate everything that you do, but
Mhm.
it's good to know that they can dial it up. They can do that, and it's in the arsenal. So I agree 100%. Would you be able to get away with some of that stuff if there's a better quarterback? And do you think that you'll be able to do that against the Chiefs? Probably not, but you have to be able to show that you can do it and at least give the threat of it, instead of just running four people all the time. The blitz rate's going up. Sorensen's starting to figure it out. That's why we have to remain patient, even though these losses against the Vikings and Rams were very frustrating. But you still have to give them time to figure it out. It's still very early.
When the Warriors go through a slump, one of their play-by-play guys, Bob Fitzgerald, really likes to, when they make a free throw or a layup, he likes to say, sometimes you just got to see
You
the
need to
ball
see
go
the ball
through the
go through the
net.
hoop. Yep.
And that's what the Niners did yesterday. They find the defense, at least, they finally saw the ball go through the hoop. Now you just kind of hope it rolls, and it's against next week. You got two decent offenses to kind of prove that against. You got Arizona next week. You got Seattle the week after. And we'll see what Seattle looks like. They play tonight, Monday night. Part of the reason we're streaming right now, two Monday
Hmm.
night games. We don't want to compete against that. But so we'll see. I'm very excited to see how the defense takes this momentum. So Jason,
Hmm.
a lot of talk on the defense. What
Hmm.
was your second thing you took away from the 49ers game yesterday?
Uh, Jordan Mason's really good.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, when you look at this offense and you look at the way that Kyle Shanahan, it's almost like a running joke, right? Like, but what's the old joke, Andrew? Put my dad behind this offensive line, and he could rush
Put
for
put
a
my dad
thousand
in the
yards.
Shanahan offense. He get 4 yards
Hmm.
a carry.
Hmm. But there's something a little bit different about this, right? It just feels a little bit different. Um, the way he runs, is how hard he runs, and he's 5 yards a clip, like against everybody.
Mhm.
So you can't even sit there and say, oh well, it's just the Patriots. The Patriots actually have a pretty good defense. Um, it's just Jordan Mason's incredible, man. I just don't understand how they can just keep finding guys and finding replacements. Obviously, there's no one-for-one replacement with Christian McCaffrey, but god damn it, Jordan Mason's doing a hell of a job right now. Keeping the 49ers offense on schedule. Never really, they're not playing from behind the sticks. The offense is the last thing that I'm worried about, but Jordan Mason has been incredible, man. What a godsend.
Brett says, my dad smoked way too many Marlboro Reds in the 80s to do anything productive. So there you go. I guess Brett's dad can't get 4 yards of carry
Brett's a
in the
man.
final
Brett's
offense.
dad is a man. That
I,
sounds like,
I, I,
yeah,
I like to believe Brett's dad can get some yardage. Yeah,
I
Jason,
think
here's
so.
my Jordan Mason story from yesterday.
Mhm.
I was more enamored by Brock Purdy, by the Niners defense, really, to pay attention to Jordan Mason as it was going. So, after the game, I'm getting ready to write my game in review article, going through the stats. And I'm like, man, I didn't really feel like I noticed Jordan Mason. Now, he had the touchdown. He had a 25-yard run. Didn't feel like I noticed him much. And then I checked the box score. 24 carries for 123 yards. Are you serious? Like, is that maybe it's a knock on me for not noticing how good of a game he had in the moment. Sure, I can take blame. But, like, is that just an indicator of just how good Jordan Mason can be that I didn't notice a 24 carry, 123-yard game and was just like, yeah, he just was there. Like, he kind of existed. But no, that's a massive game. That is a massive game in any context. And Jordan Mason just quietly did it yesterday. And I think that's what stood out because, yes, the 25-yard run was obviously big. The Niners had 6 plays of 20-plus yards. But it was really just like 5 yards here, 6 yards there, 4 yards here. I'll get you 8 there. And that's what Jordan Mason is doing. And now it's just really like, fuck, I don't want to go too far with it, Jason. But like 50-50 workload split when McCaffrey comes back. Like how far are we go? Are you at a point now where you can maybe even have, and I know Juszczyk makes it a little more difficult, where you have Mason and McCaffrey in the backfield and you're comfortable kicking McCaffrey out wide and actually running the ball with, like, it's just it is one thing for 49ers Twitter the last 3 years to tell you just how much Jordan Mason needs to touch the ball because of hypotheticals of what he did in training camp and preseason. But now he is showing you why the Niners kept him under wraps for 3 years, because he is a dude. And like, again, it's this idea of you feel like Kyle Shanahan can take whatever running back he can and get this. But like Matt Breida never had this production, Raheem Mostert was great, but he just was never consistent. Like some of these names that you're used to, like Shanahan found this guy off the street, good running back. Jordan Mason is not just establishing himself as a good Niners running back. He's establishing himself as a really good NFL running back. And I didn't think I'd question splitting carries with Christian McCaffrey through 4 weeks, but like the conversation's got to exist at this point.
And think about this, right? If we're worried about tread on the tire for Christian McCaffrey and we're missing his impact because he's a matchup nightmare, absolutely run Christian McCaffrey on some more routes so you can increase his productivity while not putting too much on him and having him in between the tackles. Let Mason handle that, right? And you still can get those advantageous matchups against linebackers, and you still have those matchup nightmares where everybody's looking at everyone. Like picture a lineup of Debo outside, Ayuk outside, McCaffrey and Kittle inside, or like one of those guys. Obviously Mason in the backfield. I mean, so you got to take one of those guys off the field. But my God, man, I think that has to be the way to make sure that you take care of Christian McCaffrey while having him being impactful on the field and continue to give you those matchup nightmares that you so crave. And I think the reason that you are like, oh, well, I kind of, it was a quiet game, or like he silently was really good because you were blinded by Brock Purdy dimes.
Yes.
You were blinded by incredible quarterback play. You were blinded by the fact that number 13 is in a conversation right now. But I'll talk about it with anybody. Who you got? Like who's your guy that you think is playing better than Brock Purdy right now? Because it's hard to find anybody playing as good as that. So I think that's what really got you away from understanding that Jordan Mason was really killing it yesterday.
I'll tell you somebody who's not playing as well as Brock Purdy, Patrick Mahomes. Just throwing that one out there. Just having fun with it. I said it. Not
You're
Jason
not wrong.
Aponte.
He's not wrong.
I'm not wrong, though. I'm not wrong.
He's not wrong.
We got another donation here, Max. Thank you very much. €2, I believe that is. I should know that because I went there. Shout out to Sam Okuano working on the pronunciation. Monster game. Yeah, we touched on it a little bit already. Great game.
Sammy O. Let's just make it Sammy O. We're good with that.
Sammy
I like it.
Sammy O. Hey, Jason, my second thing I'm bringing to this game, you just mentioned the name, Brock Purdy. I think Brad Graham tweeted it out earlier today that we're watching Brock Purdy blossom into a legitimate NFL starter before our eyes. And don't let the internet tell you that. Let Kyle Shanahan tell you that, because I don't know if you noticed, Jason, there was a lot of deep shots yesterday. The Niners had 3 of 4 drives in the second half where the first play of the drive opened with a deep shot from Brock Purdy. 2 of the 3 were connected. Chris Conley kind of tripped at the top of his route, couldn't complete it, but I think he got what? It was 45 and 55, so that's 100 yards. Good math podcast here on 2 throws.
Be patient, boo boo.
We sit here and everybody wants to talk about the George Kittle catch, which as we should. 3 Patriots defenders. Brock Purdy knew exactly where he was putting that football. And I don't like to compare Brock Purdy to any other Niner quarterbacks in the past because I don't think it's necessarily fair. But the reason I say Kyle Shanahan is telling us who Brock Purdy is, could you picture Kyle Shanahan taking 3 deep shots on opening drives with Jimmy Garoppolo, with Nick Mullins, with CJ Bet? This offense, I know a lot of people like to use the word. This podcast probably mentioned it that the offense isn't at its fullest with guys with Jimmy Garoppolo and all that. We're finally seeing this Niners offense get unlocked, and it's the trust Kyle Shanahan has in Brock Purdy. Statistically, like not his best game. The 288 yards absolutely going to pop out. But I mentioned on Friday that New England had the second highest completion percentage against at 75%. Purdy goes 15 for 27 with a touchdown and a pick. But if you really want to talk about looking like the guy, Brock Purdy looks like the guy. And Kyle Shanahan is telling us that with the way he's using Brock Purdy.
Somehow Brock Purdy simultaneously raises the floor and ceiling of this offense. Mm-hmm. And it is like the confidence that he has in him, right? And that's why, yes, Debo misses the game, Kittle misses the game. Okay, Christian McCaffrey hasn't been around. This offense is still functioning. And yes, they kicked a lot of field goals, or they tried. They were stalling out in the red zone. Okay, but again, you're watching this offense play so well and realize again, this offense hasn't hit its peak yet. It's not peaked, and it's still a work in progress right now. I think that's what makes it the most exciting. When you think about the fact that this offense has largely been a non-issue this season, a non-issue. In any of these games, we can't point to the offense and say we're fine. But it still hasn't played its best game yet. This team still hasn't locked it all the way in. And I think that's scary. Now, does that mean when Christian McCaffrey comes back, that's what we're waiting for? I don't know if it's all that. But Brandon Ayuk is getting more involved. You see that, you see the blossoming of Juwan Jennings. Debo catches one of those long passes. Everybody's involved. It seems like this offense is still finding its way, yet it's still really, really efficient still like it was last season. And it can only get better from here. And I think that's what's exciting. And it's exciting to have a guy that can lift this offense in times when, this guy's hurt. Okay, lift us, Brock. And he's doing that right now. And I think anybody who is watching him right now and doesn't have the takeaway that he's improving in front of your eyes and he's getting better, then you just don't know what you're watching, or you're just making shit up. So I think it's really interesting, like, to watch this happen, because somehow, and we talked about this all off season, the statistical portion of Brock Purdy's game is not going to be the evaluator of him improving.
No.
What you're seeing with your eyes is the improvements, is understanding where to go with the football even faster now, understanding what defenses are trying to do, taking deep shots. He's not a check down merchant. It's not that narrative has been completely busted. And that's been busted since last season, when he literally was at the bottom of the league in check down attempts. Like 5% of his throws were check downs. It's just, how much more do you need to see from him before you start to just say, that's it, man? Like, it's crazy to think that we have a guy and he's still improving. And again, simultaneously lifts the floor and the ceiling of this offense, man. It's so fun to watch.
Yeah, and you mentioned it too with, they had a lot of field goals. They left some points on the field. Like, going from, I'll even extend it back 20 years, going from Brock Purdy years, so 2022, to like Jeff Garcia times. How many times do you think we've said, the Niners scored 30 points and they left a shit ton on the field? Like, that's the type of the Niners scored 30 points yesterday, and we're talking about like, hey, this is how they could have done a little bit better. And that's what's scary to me about this 49ers offense. And it's not even just Purdy growing before our eyes, but like it's the improv for me. It's the improv for me, man. Like so much of Shanahan's offense the past 5 years has been like, you take those 3 steps, you put your foot in the ground, and you throw that shit on time. That's what the Niners offense has been. But Brock Purdy, almost in a combination with this offensive line, like multiple times, and even last week they mentioned the play where he was scrambling for 15 seconds, whatever it was, he is not only back there scrambling, he's keeping his eyes downfield. And again, I don't like to compare it to previous quarterbacks, but like if there was any other quarterback in the last 5 years that would scramble like Brock Purdy did yesterday and would turn his shoulders to throw, you'd almost be like, oh no, like, oh no, like let's throw this one away. But Purdy, he turns his shoulders to throw, and there's Kyle Juszczyk for a touchdown. I know that one got called back. Oh, there's Deebo Samuel, and he's finding these guys downfield, and it's just is this what it's like to have a good quarterback, Jason? Like, is that the question that I'm asking? Is this what it's like to have a good quarterback? Because it's just like we went from the oh no throws of the Jimmy Garoppolo era to like, yeah, man, I don't care what Brock Purdy does. As long as he's releasing the ball, I'm pretty confident that ball is getting caught by a 49er. And that's something we haven't felt as 49er fans for a long time, man.
I used to pray for times like this.
That's kind of what it is, man. It's just, it's not just what Purdy's doing, but it's the confidence Shanahan has in him to run an offense in the NFL. And we're seeing, like, you remember like the days where I keep mentioning his name. I need to stop. We're going to stop talking quarterback. But like, you remember talking about like Jimmy Garoppolo, like, oh, he's so good because he has all these weapons around, and it'd be like a 20-point game. And like, here we are. This offense finally feels fully unlocked. I promise that's the last time I say the name Jimmy Garoppolo this podcast.
It is not. And I will always say his name. I will always say his name.
Just, man, I guess I'm ending with just Brock Purdy's really fucking good at football, man. Yeah. And I'm so excited to see it.
Right. Yeah.
Jason, your third and final thing before we get to 3 stars.
Fred Warner is the fucking defensive player of the year.
You took my thing again. Took it again. But go ahead, Jason.
So let's both go for it. Look, 2 interceptions, forced fumble, literally making plays everywhere. I watch a very good deal of football. Everybody, right? Like tonight, when after Avery gets picked up, I'm gonna like lock in and watch a lot of the teams that either I've got my eye on or the 49ers like have to play. I don't know if there's anybody in the league right now that is better defensively. Right now, and that might be biased. And if someone can point one out, I'm willing to listen. I'm not telling you that's the end all be all, but Fred Warner is the fucking DPOY right now, through 4 games. And I really don't see an argument for anybody else in terms of just impacting everything and every way. Literally, he's the reason that Minnesota game was so close. Like that game would have got out of hand if he's not doing that. Then you have the pick 6. It's just, what more do you need Fred to do, man? Fred is love him, man. My favorite Niner, man. Thank you, Fred Warner. We don't deserve you, man.
Can I take it one step further?
Yeah.
We're 4 games through the season. It's a relatively small sample size, and through 17 games, I'm sure things will balance out. I think there's an argument to be made that Fred Warner is the most valuable player of the league right now. There isn't a quarterback that's really stood out yet.
Sam Darnold erasure is crazy.
Sam Darnold. Oh man, Sam Darnold wins an MVP.
Sam Darnold's playing well. He's playing well.
Could you imagine the discourse of a world where Sam Darnold wins MVP and the Niners finally win the Super Bowl in the same? Like, what would Niner fans be like? Oh, they could have had an MVP quarterback, but they got the Super Bowl. What we do?
That's Kyle Shanahan's like dream. I think
know, right?
is to see Sam be successful and have his team win a Super Bowl. I think if you were drawing it up, it would be Kyle Shanahan's like greatest dream.
Remember when people were mad that Sam Darnold beat Trey Lance for the backup last year? Anyways, back to Fred Warner. Just mentioning all the former 49ers quarterbacks today, I guess. I said no more Jimmy. Didn't say anything about Trey. It's just the way he's impacting the games, like again, it's not often we talk about a middle linebacker impact. Like the days of the middle linebacker, like dominating games, are more or less not gone, but like it kind of showing that who was the Lions took a linebacker in the first round, Jack Campbell, and like
Mhm.
that was like people were like, what are you doing? Like
What
that's
are you
such a
doing?
non important position to take. And Fred Warner, we're sitting here talking about because yes, Fred Warner's why the Niners were involved in that Vikings game. Fred Warner, you could make an argument that Fred Warner's the reason the Niners got going yesterday because the
Yeah.
Niners have 2 consecutive drives that end in the red zone with 3 points each. New England has a chance after 2 or 3 bad drives to tie the football game. And Fred Warner makes a play. The play, like he jumps so high that if that play happened in Madden, people would be throwing their controller through the TV because it's like
Mhm.
nobody has that vert. But Fred Warner does it. And you mentioned his stats, but Jason, I'm gonna mention him again. 7 tackles, forced fumble, an interception return for a touchdown. And you didn't even mention he didn't play the entire second half. Like if it wasn't for Jair Brown having 8 tackles, Fred Warner would have led the team yesterday through one half. And I just don't know if you can find on any NFL team on any side of the ball a more important individual player to that side of the ball. I would argue that Fred Warner to the 49ers defense is more important than Patrick Mahomes to the Chiefs offense. I would say he's more important to I, I don't want to go too far, but I would argue that Fred Warner is at that point that Aaron Donald was to the Rams of
Mhm.
just he's by far their best player. And if you remove him, even with the talent all around him, this defense looks way, way different. I want it to be said through 4 weeks of the season, the 49ers middle linebacker should be the leading candidate for most valuable player. That's not going to last over 17 weeks. Absolutely not. Because at some point, like we even saw it yesterday, offenses are kind of waking up a little bit. That slow start that we were talking about through 3 weeks. There's a lot of high scoring games yesterday. But right this second, I'd be hard pressed to find a better candidate in the NFL to be most valuable player than Fred Warner.
Well, right now he's a DPOY. We can at least say
Yes,
that. And
for
the
sure.
MVP essentially is a quarterback award,
It's a quarterback
right?
thing. Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely
But I
agree with
understand
that. It's
exactly
just
what you're saying. I understand what
yes.
you're saying. Like a middle linebacker keeping your team in the game is like unheard of, right?
Mhm.
And you know, Bowman and Willis, they're different types of middle linebackers, right? Like, and it's
Mhm.
not the same thing. Like, it's having somebody from who played safety comes in, he can wreck the game with tackling, he can cover, he's running with CD Lamb up the seam, like carrying 2 receivers up. It's just there's nobody better in the business right now. There's nobody better in the business right now than him, and this might be his finest season somehow. Somehow, right? Like I don't know how he's getting better. I don't know how that he's having more of an impact, but he just is. And it's crazy to say that because he's been the best middle linebacker in football, the best linebacker in football for years. And somehow this year he's somehow better. I'm floored when I watch him play, man. He's so good.
I feel like the last 3 years on this podcast, Jason, we've talked about like what other words can we use to describe Fred Warner, and he just like keeps getting. And now it's to a point where it's like, does he even have a ceiling? Like you would think at some point we would run into that ceiling, but here we are, what year 7, and he's getting better every week. I mean, I would argue he's getting better every play, and it's been so fun to watch. And I know there's a great lineage of Niners linebackers, and I know there's one linebacker that we don't like to really compare him to because that one linebacker is one of the all-time greats. But like he's just getting there, man. And Fred Warner is something special, Jason. I'm happy you mentioned him.
I'm happy that he's on our team, man. I love this team and I love our guys. But a lot of people would think that we're biased when it comes to all that, but I think it's universally known that Fred is the best, and I don't think anybody would really argue that with a straight face unless they're themselves are biased. But we're just blessed, man. We're really lucky to have the best linebacker in football, the best left tackle in football, the best tight end in football. Like it's still fun to watch, man, and it's just hard. It's hard to believe that they're all on one team like that, man. It's just it's really cool to see Fred Warner, man, just continue to get better. I really have. I'm at a loss for words almost watching him now because of
Yeah.
how much he's getting better. It's almost unfathomable that he's getting better, playing better than he ever has, and it's we're just lucky, man. We're very lucky.
My third and final thing, Jason, and I think that we touched on a lot of the positives, so I want to touch on one negative. The referees yesterday
Oh,
were atrocious, and on both sides. I can't remember the one. I know there was a missed call for sure that went against the Patriots, and that wasn't very good. But the Niners scored 3 drives in one possession.
mhm.
The Niners scored three, or sorry, they scored 3 touchdowns in one
Touchdowns.
possession. There we go. Got
Mhm.
the wording right. Podcaster Jason Aponte. 3 touchdowns in one drive. One was called back by an atrocious holding call against George Kittle. Greg Olson in the booth even said, like, if you're calling that a holding, you need to throw 3 flags every play
Mhm.
because that's every play.
Mhm.
A couple plays later, the Niners find the end zone again. Well, Kyle Juszczyk, kind of on a scramble play, gets open. That's what New England got called on a block on the back. That's what it was. It wasn't a very. It was. Oh, it was on the third down reverse play. The
Mhm.
third down reverse play. They got called for an atrocious block in the back. That wasn't a block in the back. Neither here nor there. But they called a penalty on 2 men in motion before both get set, illegal formation. You watch the replay. Juwan Jennings is the only man in motion. He gets set for a good beat before the snap. Shouldn't have been wiped off and then the Niners get the third touchdown. But just on by the way, just a Kittle's touchdown that we've already talked about, just an amazing play. I'm happy the Niners won this game because there'd be a
Mhm.
lot more conversation around the referees had they
Mhm.
not. But like even too in the fourth quarter, there was moments where I was just sitting there saying, like, these are NFL referees, really.
Mhm.
Like, it was not good. I'm happy, as I said, I'm happy this is a blowout because it was one of those games where, like, if this is a one possession game, you could talk about it from both sides. The rest were atrocious. But man, they were bad yesterday, Jason.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, we can joke about it now. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was a rough go, man. Like, and I know we joke about like, refs and who's in their back pocket, but my God, like that's why I had to send out that tweet, the Drewski thing. Is like how much we got on that parlay, talking to the referee, because it had to feel like that. It almost felt like at certain points, especially on that one drive, it was like that Buffalo Wild Wings commercial where like they're pressing the button, let's send it to overtime, and they like have the guy trip on something. Like it's like we can joke about it now, but they were especially bad, man. This was
Yeah.
just like a really, really poor showing. Like, and whatever, it's fine, but it is something to point out definitely in this game because you did think about this, right? We're talking about all these monster days for Jordan Mason, and then what would it have been if one of those touchdowns still stands and the extra yards for Purdy and stuff? So yeah, look, I mean, again, we can laugh about it now because the game's over and the 49ers won by a lot. But shit, they were terrible, and I don't disagree with you at all on that.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I don't like to drag on them, especially as I said in a blowout. Like, it is what it is. But especially in a situation where it's 2 touchdowns get called back, and both were just like it'd be one thing if, like, Kittle's holding was called and Jordan Mason got shoved out of bounds, and maybe Purdy gets sacked on the illegal but like to have not only 2 touchdowns called back by penalty is already a bad look in my opinion. Just because, like, touchdowns shouldn't get called back, like, unless
Right.
it's very obvious.
Obvious.
But to have 2 touchdowns called back on non-calls is it's insane. And I know it's more of a baseball thing. I don't know how you do it for football, but those umpire scorecards that they do,
Mhm.
like, we'd be shooting 75% yesterday if there was a referee scorecard.
If there was that the NBA has that 2 minute
Yes.
drill thing, right? Like that like don't do that for the NFL because, and I know why the NFL doesn't do it because they don't want to embarrass their referees and things
Mhm.
like that. And the worst thing to ever hear, and I hate it, is when a ref is like, "Yeah, that shouldn't have been the call. We made the." That doesn't help me any. That you let me know that you made the wrong call. Would it be okay to have a little bit more of accountability? Sure. They're still humans, but that's the reason the NFL doesn't do it because they don't want to put their guys under the microscope even further and have that like we're watching two football teams. We're not here to watch the refs. We're
Yes.
not here to watch you guys make calls.
Mhm.
We're here to watch football players play.
Yeah.
And when the calls are, I guess, like you could say 50-50, like it could go either way. That might be one thing, but some of them were just absolutely egregious. And I just don't
Yeah.
see what you're seeing. Again, my trained eye is watching it on TV. It's a lot easier. I don't have to make the call or anything like that. But you're a goddamn professional.
Yeah.
And what do you like? I don't want to hear that you're just like making the wrong call. And it's like, oh, it's human error. It didn't affect the 49ers this time, but if it does in another game, we're not going to be happy about it. So I guess that's it.
The Mason call felt oddly personal too, because the
Yeah.
ref fired that flag into his face.
Mhm.
Like, it felt like, nope, you're not scoring a touchdown today, buddy. Here's a nice little penalty.
How much you
And
got
it
on that
wasn't
parlay? That's what I'm talking about. How much you got on that parlay? How does it not look like
like
that?
because like usually to me, like, you throw the flag up in the air. That ref just was like, nope, Jordan Mason, go back. Go, but nope, this touchdown doesn't count. Like it almost felt personal. Again, we could kind of joke about it. Niners won, and it was a blowout. I'm sure Patriot fans aren't too riled up about it either, but
I don't think they're
it's
worried
something
about
that
it. I think
existed.
the Patriot fans kind of know what their season is.
I think they
They're
do.
not too worried
So,
about it.
Jason, we got to the end game. We're here. Niners 2-2, 3 stars for week 4. I'll let you start. I'm gonna let Jason start today.
Okay, third start, Nick Sorensen. Look, I
Okay.
understand you're finding your way. You take over a group with Super Bowl aspirations. You are trying to do this for the first time. You're trying to connect everything. I think this was a perfect confidence building game for him. Again, apples to apples doesn't mean that every game you can blitz. Different quarterbacks, different personnel are going to give you fits, and you're not going to be able to do that. But it is important for you to figure things out. This was a perfect game for you to figure these things out. You get confidence on your defensive line. You put confidence in your defense that you guys are still that, and you put confidence in your defense that you're going to put them in positions to succeed. Nick Sorensen is starting to figure it out. Again, I'm old enough to remember when Robert Saleh should have been fired. I'm old enough to remember when D'Amico Ryans got fired. I understand the urgency with this team because of how far they got last season and the expectations this season. You have to let him go through it, at least for this week. Nick Sorensen looked good, and that's a confidence builder.
I'm gonna go a different Nick. I'm gonna go Nick Bosa.
Ah,
Defensive line, obviously pretty good yesterday. 7 pressures, a sack, or 5 hurries, forced fumble, fumble recovery on his own fumble, forced fumble. He's my third star strictly for the kind of manic rush he was in the third, fourth quarter there to get that sack, because there was like a
he was getting
4-play
close.
sequence where
Yeah.
you could see him getting closer as he was getting more and more frustrated. And then he finally paid it off with the strip sack and the recovery. It was just really fun to watch Nick Bosa kind of get almost frustrated with himself, not getting to. He felt like he should have had a sack or two the entire game,
Mhm.
and he really turned it up at the end of the game. He finally got the sack. It was a big play because New England was in pretty deep territory when that forced
Mhm.
fumble came. I don't think it was a particularly close game at the point. Let's see here when the fumble happened. I can't find it. It was like a 2 or 3 score game at that point. It
Mhm.
wasn't necessarily particularly close. Oh, here, in the game, it was already a 17-point game, but New England deep in Niner territory, maybe a touchdown. It shrinks down to a 10-point game with 3 minutes to go. And hey, weird things happen. But Bosa slamming the door shut on a win with his high effort plays at the end of the game. Really liked it. So Nick Bosa is my third star.
Coffee is for closers, and that's what I expect from Nick Bosa is to slam the
Yeah.
door on games and finish. That's another good thing to see. Absolutely. Second star, Jordan Mason.
Mhm.
Just right now, I believe he leads the league in rushing, unless I mean Derrick Henry had what 199 yesterday, so maybe that jumped up a little bit. But Jordan Mason has just been absolutely great. It's crazy because as 49ers fans, sometimes we tend to hype players that necessarily don't ever pan out, or it's just like, who's the guy I'm thinking of, the guy on the offensive line, like that they let go like to Ill Manning, right? Like
Yes, El Manning. Yes.
we have a tendency to really like players and really, but 49er fans, we've been dead on about this guy the entire time. I'll never forget being at that first training camp, and I'm like, who the hell is that? 24, who is that? Every time ripping off runs. He stayed patient. He got his chance, and he's making the most of it. Jordan Mason is going to get paid somewhere else if the 49ers are not able to bring him back, and he's earned every single dollar of it through 4 weeks, man. Jordan Mason's incredible.
Yeah, my second star is going to be Jordan Mason as well, Jason. And yes, Derrick Henry's 199-yard performance did take him to the top of the rushing chart. He has 480, Jordan Mason at 447. But they have the same oh no, they don't. I lied to you. 4.9 yards per attempt on the season for Jordan Mason. But as I said, man, it was a very quiet 125-yard game for him, at least for me.
A whole hum 124 yard
The
game.
comparison I have is I went to game 5 of the 2016 Western Conference Finals. The Warriors were down 3-1. Came back to win that series against Oklahoma City. Warriors won that game, and one of my favorite players is Kevin Durant. And I was like, oh man, I don't really feel like I noticed Durant that much. And after the game, and as I was thinking that, they were doing the like post game, like who had the best games, and they over the top they go Durant 40 points. I'm like, Jesus Christ, Kevin Durant had 40 points. I feel like I barely, and that's like what I thought of. I barely noticed Jordan Mason, 125-yard game, just very casual for him at this point. Very good running back, and the Niners have some decisions to make in a couple of weeks, come November, with how they want to split the carries. Jason, who's your number one star?
Fred Warner.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Fred. We're so lucky, and you're the shining example of what this team wants to be. In every way that you carry yourself, the leader you are, the player you are. We literally went through the years with Willis and Bowman, and we argued tooth and nail with everybody about them being the best at their position. And, he going up against like the likes of like Ray Lewis and like Brian Urlacher at the time. But there's no doubt that Fred Warner is that. And it's just crazy to think 52, 53, 54. It's just insane to think that he's playing better than he's ever played through 4 weeks. Yeah. And he's just improving. We're just lucky, man. I'm running out of ways to praise Fred Warner. And don't ever leave us, man. Please, ever. Stay here forever. Please stay a lifetime 49er. I couldn't picture him being anywhere else. We are so lucky to have Fred Warner.
I agree with everything you said on Fred Warner. Fred Warner is my number one star for the game yesterday. But based on vibes, Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's my number one star.
And I wanted to go there with Brock too. Yeah. I really did, man, because I'm telling you that I've never been more impressed with him. Everything looks good when you're winning, right? And you're blowing people out, obviously. But I've learned more about him through this 2-2 stretch that I feel like I've learned from all of last season. I now have the confidence to say, I don't think we're out of it, or, he's not going to throw us out of it. He'll throw us back in. That's the stuff that I'm learning about him now in these two. And adversity is going to tell you more than success will. And I don't even know if that's a bar or if that even makes sense, but I don't learn things about players when things are going well. Everybody looks good. It ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun. It's what do you do when it's something else and your back's against the wall and you have a little adversity? How do you respond? And he's just playing better than he's ever played. And it's scary because he still can improve a little bit more. I'd like to see him get down a little bit, though, sometimes when he's scrambling. I understand you want to keep the play going, and that's the part that we love about you. But please, please watch out. Please get down. I just get scared of those things. And I thought it was kind of funny that in the press conference, he made a little comment that I think it should reverberate with 49ers Twitter. And he says, I've got a 10-yard split that's faster than McCaffrey. And this guy goes, I'm not Lamar Jackson, though. And I was like, is it funny to me that I think that maybe Brock Purdy's on Twitter, got a burner or something like that, and he's just walking around? Because we obviously know what I'm alluding to when we talk about that. But I thought that was pretty funny, too. But, yeah, Brock Purdy's hooping, man. And there's nothing less that needs to be said.
And to give Jason Aponte credit, what was that underdog number for Brock Purdy rushing yards?
5.5. Took it.
Everything hit
but Ramondre Stevenson. Oh my God. So if you guys listen to the underdog, by the way, promo code Aponte, you match your first deposit up to $1,000. And if you do pick'ems for tonight's games, you are getting 10% bonus cash back. But Juwan Jennings hits, Purdy hits, Ramondre Stevenson, 13.5 rushing attempts. Remind me, how many rushing attempts did Ramondre Stevenson have, Andrew Pasquini?
He had 13. That fumble didn't help.
No, he got thrown into the doghouse for a little bit. But
JaMycal Hasty.
Yes, JaMycal Hasty revenge game.
Which, by the way,
game.
Who's the play-by-play guy? Oh, who was it? I know Greg Olson. Who's the play-by-play guy? was having a hell of a time distinguishing Ramondre Stevenson and
Stevenson
JaMychal
from
Hasty.
Hasty.
Both guys with dreads wearing 39 and 38. Like, he was in hell all game with Hasty and Stevenson.
That's got to be racist, man.
I wanted to joke, but like the numbers are too close to each other to like. But Jason, I wanted to mention the Purdy over under for rushing yards. You said 5.5. Jason Aponte told you to take the over. Third play from scrimmage for the 49ers, a 3rd and 3. Brock Purdy 7-yard scramble for a first down. Hey,
Bang.
Nice and easy. Gambling's easy. Gambling or putting money on football games is easy.
That's the easiest money out there is the Brock Purdy over on rushing, because it's like the most it'll go up to is like 9.5, and he's gonna get that. Yeah. And then the other easy one is anything Juwan Jennings with over. Again, I think we should talk about him a little bit more. 3 catches, 83 yards, really just blossoming right now, like as a receiver. The 49ers are loaded right now, man, with the way that this offense is. Absolutely loaded. They can go toe-to-toe with anybody as long as their offense is clicking. But Juwan Jennings, again, shout out to him. Easiest money is over Brock Purdy rushing yards, over Juwan Jennings receiving yards. And it doesn't matter who's on the field, whether Debo or Kittle are playing. It's always take the over on Juwan Jennings.
Hey, another one that would have hit yesterday is that Moody over 1.5 field goal. Just throwing that one out there. Doesn't hit every week, but it hit yesterday. Jason, we did it. We got through another episode. We got to another 49ers win. 49ers Twitter has this weird way of making you think another one will never come after a loss, but it came. Niners got the win. It was good. It was happy. It made us all happy. Niners next. They got the Arizona Cardinals, which could go really a lot of ways because
I know what way it's going to go.
I feel like I know what way it's going to go based off what the last 2 weeks have told us, but we'll see. A week of previewing is up. Niners Cardinals coming Sunday. We'll be back Friday, 5:15 p.m. normal time. We shouldn't have as many of these lunchtime streams anymore with the 2 Monday Night Football game trend ending after today. But Jason, it was a good episode. Who the Yankees got in that first round of the playoffs, by the way? We
still do not know. I do know this.
Oh, because they got the buys now, huh?
Right. So the Yankees are waiting for whoever it is that's going to come out of these wild card games. But I will probably be in the building for game 2, man. I'm so juiced for the playoffs. I love baseball. It's such a real sport. We are so back.
Have you been keeping an eye on the end of the Mets Braves?
Yes. I literally was just watching it. I was. The Braves blew the lead, right?
Yeah, so the Braves scored. The Mets scored 6 in the 8th to make it 6-3. The Braves answered with 4 of their own in the bottom of the 8th to make it 7-6. And Francisco Lindor hit a 2-run home run in the top of the 9th inning to give the Mets the win, 8-7.
Wow.
They'll be going to the playoffs. They got a second game. The Braves have to win now.
Wow. I love baseball. How can you not be romantic about baseball, man?
12 runs in the last 2 innings with a playoff.
Wow, they look dead. They look dead in the water. Oh my God.
And now they're playing again because the Braves have to win to make the playoffs. So that's a interesting situation.
The Mets and the Yankees in the playoffs. New York baseball's back, baby.
When's the last time that happened?
Because the Yankees didn't make it last year. I want to say maybe like 2 or 3 years ago.
Was it a couple of years ago? Okay, Mets haven't been very good in a long time, so maybe that's just what it is.
October baseball doesn't matter. I feel you, Axel.
Hey, October baseball matters until the Yankees play the Astros. Then it doesn't.
All right, let's tie it back to Bay Area. We talked about this. Explain Buster Posey being put it in football terms. Go.
Yeah, man. So. My best comparison, I messaged it in the chat, Jason. It would have been like after the Tom Sula, Kelly, bulky years got real bad, is if the Niners went out and hired Steve Young. I don't love the move right now because it screams a PR move. It feels like pandering. I haven't been a big fan of ownership the past couple of years because they've been very cheap. And a lot of Giants fans have kind of blamed Farhan for that. I'm not trying to say the Giants should have kept Farhan. I think Farhan probably needed to go. I like Farhan.
Just time for a change.
But having his replacement ready to go without even really looking around feels really, really weird. I'm sure it's going to be like a John Lynch type situation where it's not a front office mind, but he'll surround himself with an Adam Peters type to make things better. But in the moment, it just doesn't feel good because it feels like ownership's trying to win the good graces of the fan base back. And this just feels like a guy of, Buster Posey's our president of baseball operations, but we don't have to spend money now because you guys aren't going to get mad at Buster Posey. And that's what it feels like to me, but that's the kind of instant reaction. We'll see what it looks like in a week, see if the Giants do anything. But I think the best comparison is after Tom Sula, after Chip Kelly, they brought in Steve Young to make the football decisions because they needed a win for something. So that's my comparison.
It felt like a goodwill type thing, right? Like
it feels like
kind of have like it's like we know you guys are upset, but here's Buster Posey and you love him.
And they're trying to run it as like, oh, well, Buster's been in the background for a couple years now, kind of learning things. And, oh, he did the Matt Chapman deal. So it's just like, okay, like it sounds good on paper, but let's see what it looks like. This isn't an organization that has been in a good place for the last 6 years. And a PR move doesn't feel the best, but we'll see what happens. It's football season, Jason. It's football season. It's football.
Yes, it is.
Brock Purdy exists. Hey, Jason Aponte, as always.
Let's go Niners. We're so fucking back.
We're so back. Niners looking good. I got to stall because I keep forgetting that I'm the one who closes the podcast now. And now the podcast is over.
Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners.